Madam Speaker, I rise at 10 minutes past 9 to enter the debate and to provide information to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago through you and through this House on a decision that was taken yesterday by the government of Trinidad and Tobago to deal with the demonetization of our largest note in circulation, which is the $100 note. I've listened attentively to my friend and colleague from Miscellaneous West, as well as a member for Point-a-Pierre, to be in a position to be able to address their legitimate concerns where they exist, but also to provide the necessary information that can be provided at this stage. I have to start by saying that I found it like a bit of a fishing expedition by my friend. He kept throwing debate. You have to justify, you have to tell us, you can't hide behind national security. That may work with someone else and in another place. To say that you must come here with statistical evidence and you must lay it out nakedly and all to bear as to who is engaging in what and why you want to do this. As was stated very clearly yesterday, this particular measure is being done, and there is not a single law-abiding citizen in Trinidad and Tobago who would oppose it. And in fact, the member for Point-a-Pierre started off by saying, and even quoting and saying that the leader of the opposition supports the principle and the legislation. So I'll start off once again, Madam Speaker, by stating this particular measure is being implemented in order to fight money laundering, including the financing of drugs, narcotics, and the illegal firearm trade. Pause. A lot of time was spent in the last contribution talking about money laundering and how money laundering is conducted. It's not only conducted in cash, it's conducted in real estate and jewelry, etc. Obviously. That this can't be the only measure taken to combat money laundering. Who said it's the only measure? To say that would be to mislead the population. In fact, right here, not too long ago, we passed what I believe is groundbreaking legislation in the form of Explain Your Wealth. That goes to the heart of money laundering. But as we've said time and time again, there's not a single measure that you can take that will just eradicate all crime, and in particular the crime of money laundering. What I found interesting is he continued harping on real estate, on real estate, on real estate. This is going to stop real estate sales. So let me just, through you, Madam Speaker, put this in context. All we are doing today is we are amending the Central Bank Act to provide the opportunity and the discretion to allow the demonetization, which means to take out of legal circulation, to say that bill is no longer legal tender, from a notice period of 3 months to now a minimum of 14 days. That is what the legislation is. And I'll get into the bill to explain why certain provisions are there and the safeguards that are there in those provisions. So what I find astounding at the harping on and the focusing on the purchase of real estate is I am asking every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago today, and in particular the law-abiding citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, who goes and purchases million-dollar properties in cash? Who goes and purchases million-dollar properties in cash? And how the changing of an old bill to a new polymer bill will collapse the real estate. So I sat there and I listened carefully, and the continuous reference to real estate and the collapse of real estate, and I wondered, and I smiled. Who is it? Which legitimate businessman keeps millions and millions of dollars in their possession to purchase real estate? That is an interesting proposition. Again, tell us who is engaged in illegal and illicit activity. Why come with this? And this typical attempt to create a sense of panic and create a sense of frenzy as to why now and why the timing. I'll get to the timing. But again, I smiled. Because I asked my friend from Miscellaneous West, as I just said, this is being done partially to combat the financing of drugs, narcotics, and the illegal firearm trade. That is a cash industry. Those transactions, as far as I am aware, are conducted in cash. So I want to ask my friend for Shogunas West, who are the drug dealers that he knows that will take a Links card, a credit card, or a check? Because the whole, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Let me retract the whole. Let me say 99% of those who engage in that type of activity, it is in cash. It is in cash. The people who go and engage in the illegal activity, not the purchasing from the suppliers from South America or where else it will be, because yes, that might be US dollars. The domestic trading in illegal firearms, the domestic trading and carrying out of the illicit drugs, the cocaine, all of the other things that are hurting our law-abiding citizens. Every sensible person in Trinidad knows that is a cash industry. That is not a Links card. That is not I'll write you a check for the cocaine. That is not take my credit card and go and swipe it in the machine. So again, that is trying to lead the population down a specific rabbit hole. And this member, that is me, I'm not falling for that. The other things that this will deal with is the black money economy. Or as my colleague from Diego Martin, he said, that whole illicit economy, that economy where it is that dirty money economy. It also will deal with corruption. Because again, and I say at the outside, it is recognized by the government because a lot of planning went into this, a lot of consultation with the experts who've gone through this before. And I'll get to the India example in a short while. There are legitimate businesses that will be transacting, carrying a lot of transactions out in cash. No doubt about that. Every law-abiding citizen, be assured that once you're carrying out your businesses above board and in accordance with the law, you have nothing to fear. This is a simple exercise. Bring your old note, walk out with a new note. Bring your old notes, deposit it. When you're ready to withdraw your cash, withdraw it with new notes. The new note, as we've stated, as the member for Point Bay pointed out some of the features, a decision was also taken to upgrade from paper money that has less of a shelf life and less security features to polymer. Immediately by going to polymer, you've provided a security feature. The new note will have additional security features that paper can't have. You want facts with the counterfeiting side? Up to recently, we cracked a ring, meaning the law enforcement officers, where persons were bleaching $1 paper notes and then reprinting it as blue notes, as you call it. You can't do that very easily with polymer and the security features. Whilst we're upgrading our currency, we decided to deal with the differently abled, and in particular, the visually impaired. So the new tender, the new note, will have braille on it for them easy to identify. And other related problems with respect to corruption. I was talking about legitimate businessmen. So there will be some businesses, Massey stores, the whole chain of Massey stores and other things that may be dealing in cash. All you have to do is take in your old notes, exchange them for the new notes. Simple. No need for panic. It's been planned. We've been working on it. The security forces have been working on it. As Minister Imbert, the Minister of Finance, said, we've met with the banking sector. Now, the real reason behind this is a national security reason, as we stated yesterday. The government has accepted that for national security reasons, we should change the note. It will completely defeat the purpose of what you're trying to achieve, to come and say, well, we intend to change the note. We'll change it down the road. We'll change it next year. Takes me to the point of convenience and timing, because I expected it. I expected the noise about timing, because people have a legitimate right to have concerns. I understand, and the government understands, there will be some level of anxiety by pensioners, as I mentioned, and other people. That is why we meet with the banks and tell the banks you have to cater. You made a point, member for Shogunas West, and you talk about who will benefit, who will be the real beneficiary, and the suggestion that the banks will be, well, I will be very surprised, because the banks now have to incur additional cost and expense to be able to implement this, because they have to be the ones carrying this out. It's not going to be any of us carrying it out. And this is a perfect opportunity to put down the marker. Government decides policy, and other people implement. The government has taken a decision to change the note for reasons, some of which I'll touch on. The implementer and the administrator of this decision is the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. And the legislation, the majority that we're looking at here today, the amendment to the Central Bank Act and the introduction of 27A, wherever you see bank referred to there, it is the central bank. So the central bank must carry this out, this policy decision of the government. It is not the government. The credit unions, so when you said, are credit unions left out, the answer is no. Because the reference to the banks is not the reference to commercial banks. It's the central bank. Credit unions, like all of us, credit unions, like the banks, bring in your existing notes, you will be provided with replacement notes. And therefore, they would in turn be able to provide their shareholders, as you know, that's how the cooperative society credit unions work, their shareholders and their membership with their deposits. So no need for scare there. Same thing with the pensioners. We've told the banks you have to increase your resources over the period of time. The central bank has by now put out there, because as I said, they're the administrators, they're the implementers. They've put out there, this is what the new note will look like. We are busy working now to ensure that the commercial banks get the notes. I put down a marker here as well, because one of the things that went wrong in India was there were not sufficient notes. Not sufficient notes to replace. Again, we in Trinidad are not a backward people. In the sitting down and the planning and for the implementation of this, as I said, we met with the experts, the international experts. We discussed things, and we will learn from the mistakes that others were made. So I give the population the assurance that the replacement notes for the existing notes in circulation are available and will be available. So we're not going to have that problem. Let me just touch on the India example. It's a convenient point, and I expected it. In India, in 2016, the Prime Minister got up, or the government got up, and announced on the 8th of November, if I remember the date correct, yeah. It was Moody. 8th of November, as of today, the 8th of November, demonetization. No longer legal tender. So make your way to the bank. First difference. We're not doing that. You're asking about dates, I'll get to that in a short while. But the second point is, and let's be real, India in 2017 had a population of 1.339 billion people. 1.339 billion compared to 1.3 million. Incomparable. So what you then do is you look for a jurisdiction similar to us that has recently gone through this exercise, Mauritius. And Mauritius has a similar composition to Trinidad and Tobago. Population almost identical, but also, and economy to an extent, but also similar to our racial composition or ethnic composition or religious composition, etc. And that is how we went about doing this. So yes, you look at the India, you look at the others, Venezuela across the waters, and the others. We are not in a similar position to them. And what they did in India was they took their two largest bills, the 500 and the 1,000, change it out, introduce a 2,000. We are just focusing on our largest denominator bill. There is absolutely, Madam Speaker, no need for any sense of anxiety, any sense of panic whatsoever. The dates. You cannot come and present the dates today. I can't come and present the dates tomorrow either. The legislation doesn't exist. You can't preempt the legislation. We have to pass the legislation. This thing has to be done very, very carefully, very, very sequentially. Everything, even the announcement yesterday, the governor of the central bank then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon telling the population this is what it would look like. Our job is to come to Parliament and pass legislation. Yes, we want Parliament sitting now, which is why we're all here, we're conscientious, and tomorrow there'll be a short sitting, hopefully, in the Senate. Once the legislation is passed, the administrator and the implementer of this policy decision will then tell the population what is the proposed dates by the bank, meaning the central bank. The central bank has stated at this stage, with the introduction of the new bills, there will be co-circulation. Co-circulation means the existing bills, i.e. the old bills, and the new bills continue to be legal tender, continue to be acceptable for business, for trade, everything, until the date of demonetization. And in the proposed legislation, we call that the appointed date. Let's just turn very briefly to the legislation itself. Simple legislation, but important legislation. All we're doing is we're seeking to insert now a 27A, a new 27A. Because when you look at the existing Central Bank Act, and I draw your attention, and for those who down the road may want to look at the interpretation of the legislation, what we the legislators intend, start with Section 21 of the Act. Section 21 of the Central Bank Act talks about Section 21(1), the currency of Trinidad and Tobago are the notes and coins issued by the bank under this Act. So at the outset, it is telling us, and we all know it in here, that the central bank is the one who will issue the notes. Then at subsection 2, it talks about, the bank has the sole right, this is the central bank, to issue notes and coins in Trinidad and Tobago. Such notes and coins are legal tender. Right? And then it goes on. But when you go to Section 27, the existing Section 27, Section 27(1), the bank, with the approval of the minister, may, on giving 3 months' notice, publish in the Gazette, call in any of its coins, notes, and it goes on. That 3-month period is the current existing law that says within 3 months, once you give 3 months' notice, you can demonetize. Yes. This is an exercise that the government took a decision on based on national security issues. The national security issues are to combat and to fight those engaged in illegal activity. The drug dealers, the ones engaged in human trafficking. Let's not bury our head in the sand. You could ask Couva North. Couva North has stated publicly that there is criminal activity going on in the constituency. We all know it. We all know the bars, the clubs, you call it the rum shop. I'm not referring to the rum shops. We all know the bars and the clubs and the others that now are engaging in human trafficking and illegal prostitution and the use and abuse of women. The men going in there using credit cards, they're using checks, they're not using that type of thing. It is a cash economy. The real ones behind organized crime are dealing in cash. They're hoarding the cash, they're storing the cash to then use that to further the illicit activity. So today, with the passage of this, we shorten and compress the time to a minimum of 14 days. And as we go through the legislation, you will see where there are safeguards and protection. So the legitimate questions were asked. What about people who, for example, and I've gotten the questions asked, they reside outside of Trinidad and Tobago, but annually they come. We all have them, family members who would come for summer, those who would come for carnival, etc. But they have their TT cash. What do they do with their $100 bills now? It's provided for here. And we will deal with that. The central bank will publish, as we have planned, they've sat down carefully and planned for these instances. A person who's ill, a person who's unable to get to the bank within that period of time. Categories of people will be identified, and the provisions are here in this amendment to cater for the unexpected instances and the expected, because as we can stand here now and talk about persons who are outside coming back in, walking with their money. So they come in for Carnival next year, they come in for Christmas next year, whenever it is. Right? What people? We deal with them differently. All right? So what we're doing is we're coming here with an amendment to deal with and to give the ability, because the legal advice was you don't go under the existing 27. Make sure that we close those issues. Make sure and deal with the specific. Give the express power to demonetize. And that is all that 27 is. Try and provide for the safeguards, that the bank has to consult with the minister has to give the order, and if it is felt that the date, the appointed date, is not a sufficient one, as the legislation currently is, it doesn't provide for the opportunity to extend the date. What we're proposing here does, because again, in life they're unplanned, unforced, and these types of things you have to be able to prepare for, but you don't know what is coming. And that is what the legislation is here about. So 27A1, in addition to the powers of the bank under Section 27, the minister may direct the bank to cancel any note issued by it giving not less than 14 days. So it's not less than 14. So you can't do it willy-nilly overnight and disrupt the whole place. But the notice must be published giving the date of cancellation. 2, subsection 2. On or from the appointed date, the specified notes shall cease to be the currency of or be legal tender. Because when you're conducting these types of exercises, which is going after illegal and corrupt activity, and you want to demonetize, make it express. So no one can come and argue afterwards, well, I could still use my old $100 bill. No, we're saying very clearly, so anyone looking at it, know that from the appointed date, you can't use it anymore. So go to the bank, change it out. The central bank will give the instructions to the banking community as to how it can be. We have identified different categories that people fall into, meaning there are some who are massive cash businesses. There are some of us and some of the pensioners, etc., will have smaller amounts. There's some who may have in-between amounts. But once you're law-abiding, you just go, you explain. It exists now. All of us in here are subject to PEP. We're all politically exposed people. So go now and try to deposit at $200. You have to fill out a form. That is how it is. So what we're saying is, in the second part of this legislation I'll come to, give us the opportunity to look at the 90,000, to either increase it or to reduce it. It's not going to be secret, because you have to tell the world. And all it means now is explain your money. Fill out a source of funds. Say where the $10,000 came from, and you're good to go. But don't underestimate our banking system. They already know the doctor that comes, because every month for the last 20 years of his or her life, they've been depositing X amount of money. That is the KYC, know your customer. It exists in the banking system. No need for panic. Subsection 3, the bank shall redeem at face value. So we're making sure that people understand, and the central bank, and we all understand, your $100, you're getting $100. The value of your $100 old note, you're getting a new value, a new note at the same value, $100. Subsection 4, the bank shall redeem at face value any of the specified notes that are presented within the period of 3 months after the appointed date. So this is the section that captures the categories of people we were just discussing. So after the appointed date expires, there's an automatic 3-month period, according to this legislation, to start, so it protects anybody who falls out of the period. And that resulted that, so you couldn't put in your money or change your money, present your notes for redemption prior to the appointed date, and that resulted from circumstances beyond the control of the true owner of the notes, or that there was some other good or sufficient reason for the failure. We don't stop there, but we provide for it expressly in the law to ensure that people are protected. Subsection 5, the minister may by order extend either of the dates, extend the dates of period in subsections 1 and 4. Subsection 1 is the original date, the original appointed date, that's the demonetization date. So it's not a drop dead. At the end of the day, we will have the ability to extend as you see how things are going. But, and I warn the population, don't think it will be exercised, because understand this exercise, it will be exercised at discretion, because understand the purpose of this is we're going after those engaged in criminal and corrupt activity. You don't want them to fall in. You're hearing it all. You're seeing it everywhere. I'm being messaged. You're seeing it on social media. Everybody's speculating. Well, they'll find the loophole. They'll do this. They'll do that. Again, don't think that people are stupid, especially the law enforcement and those in charge. Has nothing to do with us. Our job is to pass the legislation. The government has done its part. This is a policy. Central bank implement. Other people, you have your jobs to do. So the minister can extend either of those two dates. And minister, of course, would mean, as the Constitution states, the cabinet. So it's not the Minister of Finance wake up one morning and just decide to do something. It has to be a cabinet decision, Madam Speaker. Subsection 6, the bank with the approval of the minister may prescribe such conditions. And that is what will capture it. So they will spell out to us, these are the conditions, these are the areas, this is how to deal with it. Subsection 7, and well, 8 is the definition. That, in a nutshell, Madam Speaker, is a simple amendment being made, but the effective amendment, and one that we've ensured protects the rights of every law-abiding citizen. We didn't try to go under, well, let's just scratch 3 months, bring it to minimum. No. We sought advice, and we were told, make sure you have protection. Make sure you have express provision of the powers to do what it is you want the central bank to be able to do. Then the Proceeds of Crime Act is being amended. That falls to the Minister of National Security. That will be published. People will know. I was trying to remember and I was asking the Attorney General. I think my recollection when that legislation came in, it was something like $45,000. So once you went into the bank to deposit over $45,000, including by check, you have to fill out a source of funds. Right? Correct. And then it went up to 60 and then is 90. So give us the opportunity to look at it, especially with this type of legislation, and to be reasonable and to bring it to whatever level it needs to be, to fit in, to marry with what we're trying to achieve. Just very briefly, Madam Speaker, some of the issues that have been raised in the public domain that deserve to be addressed, raised by my friends here. Timing. Timing would never be convenient. People talk about Christmas now. I guarantee if you went, they would then talk about Carnival, people coming for Carnival. After that is Easter. After that is, well, summer vacation, etc. You just have to take a decisive decision, make sure you protect people's rights, and just do it. And that is what we're doing. Inconvenience. Yes, there will be inconvenience. It by definition is going to be inconvenient for persons. Apologize for that up front. But the greater good outweighs the inconvenience. Understand the real people that we're going after. None of the law-abiding citizens, those who want to engage in the criminal activity, they deserve to have to deal with this type of measure and the implementation. Whenever the state and law enforcement implement measures and their operations to tackle crime, there will always be some level of inconvenience. But we say this is for the betterment of society. It was interesting as it was announced yesterday and people start to comment and people start to write and people start to message and communicate. A large part of the business community, and I wouldn't talk about water cooler talk that may have taken place. My colleague has already done that. But a large part of the business community actually believes that this measure at this time will provide a stimulation of the economy. And by definition, it will. Because persons who want to spend now their cash and get it out, they will now push it into the economy. I just put that on the table. When you look at the same India example, and you look at the benefits and the disadvantages, it tells you about that being one of the benefits. And we go straight to benefits. This is an effective way to curb black money economy, corruption, and counterfeiting. It will completely deal with the counterfeiting issues that we're dealing with right now. All law-abiding citizens, Madam Speaker, who are not involved in malpractice will welcome and have begun to welcome this as a good move. It forces unaccounted cash into an accountable system. And there's a big part of it. What we've been talking about and discussing, and from the national security perspective, is all of that unaccountable cash out there. And you see it. You see the viral videos. But we also know it exists, and the evidence is when we do the raids, when they make the pickups. You could also assist in having citizens open bank accounts and depositing their money. That's a safety issue as well. It also, the banks see this as a step towards a cashless society. Banks all over the world want to go that way, whether we want to or not. But it does provide some impetus towards that. So what I say, Madam Speaker, is for every law-abiding citizen, this is a simple exchange. Bring in your old notes, get your new notes. government has been planning, including with our security services.
Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, your original speaking time is now spent. You have 15 minutes to wind up your resolution.
Right? So we will provide the support that we can. We've met and spoken to the bank security personnel as well, and we have an awareness around that. This will be implemented and is to be implemented by the central bank and administered. We've taken a policy decision. We're coming here for the passage of this act. It's then up to them to implement it and make sure it's properly implemented. Money remains in core circulation until it's demonetized. The central bank will tell us when that will be. Madam Speaker, with those words, I hope and I trust that I've provided another level of clarity as to why this government decision was taken, and we look forward to the support of all, and in particular all of the law-abiding citizens, because that's our job. Our job here, as I've said before, as the legislators, is to pass legislation to support a lawful society. Thank you.